At WrestleMania 39, the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes stepped in the ring against the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns in a desperate bid to finish the story. The only problem is that this wasn't Cody's story. It was never Cody's story. No, this was a story of the bloodline. It's a story of family. It's a story of betrayal, and it's a story of brotherhood. Which is why there's only one person who can really take out the Tribal Chief. And today, we're gonna talk about him. So it's been a few weeks since WrestleMania 39 and that epic clash between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, and I think I now finally feel safe enough to say this. Cody Rhodes shouldn't have won that match. That was the correct finish. It makes sense in storyline booking. Cody Rhodes discounted Solo Sikoa, and Solo Sikoa is the reason that he lost. It fits in storyline, and when you look at it from constructing a story, like just technically, there's no reason Cody should have won that match. I mean, at the end of the day, he was supposed to face Roman last year at SummerSlam, and then he would have lost there, and then we would have moved on with our lives. I think the fact that it happened at WrestleMania, and as part of an exciting storyline that also featured Sami and Kevin and the Usos, I feel like that's why everyone jumped on it at once as this big dramatic thing that had to happen. But truth is, it was supposed to just happen at SummerSlam, and I feel like if it happened there would have been a whole lot less backlash. You see, in my opinion, there's really only one person that makes sense to take out the Tribal Chief. Only one person that makes sense to end Roman's reign. Only one individual who could take a match to the Island of Relevancy and burn it down. And if I've not already made it quite obvious, and also you've not read the title of this video, I of course am talking about none other than Seth Freakin Rollins. And look, I know it's kind of the obvious choice here, but at the end of the day, in professional wrestling, sometimes the obvious choice is the only right one. Think back to the Hangman Page and Kenny Omega storyline. We all knew what was going to happen. We knew Hangman Page was going to overcome his demons, defeat the odds, and finally claim the AEW World Championship from Kenny Omega, but that didn't make it any less enjoyable on the way. Sometimes predictability is a good thing. It allows you to just sit back and relax and enjoy the story being told in front of you versus trying to think about how you would fantasy book this or that. It kind of gives you the chance to just enjoy wrestling for once in your life, and I think Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns could be that story. But I know what you're saying. Cody Rhodes was also quite an obvious choice as someone to dethrone Roman. He was the person who opposed WWE, which is the company Roman Reigns represents. His fucking intro starts with wrestling has more than one royal family, and he was going against wrestling's biggest royal family. That also made sense, obviously, but why not Cody? Well, because they're telling a story at the end of the day, and the Bloodline saga is a years-long, overarching story that has featured numerous different elements at play. At the end of the day, it's less of a movie and more of a saga. It's like the MCU, with Roman Reigns playing the role of the Mad Titan himself, Thanos. And inside of that story, you've got the drama of the Usos and Sami and Kevin Owens. You've got the drama of Cody Rhodes and his dismissal of Solo Sikoa. You've got whatever strings Paul Heyman's pulling. And then, of course, sat atop all of it is none other than Thanos himself, Roman Reigns, the head of the table. And the best person in the MCU that I could compare Cody Rhodes to is none other than Captain Marvel. Hell, the color scheme fits and everything. Just this magnificent beast who showed up to the final battle, destroyed Thanos' fleet, and made it possible for the rest of the Avengers to take out the Mad Titan. And what did Cody Rhodes do? He showed up like a wild force of nature out of nowhere after being exiled for a very long time, much like Captain Marvel. I just made that connection while recording this. That makes me very excited. And then he shows up, and what does he do? He aligns Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn once again for them to go on and take out the Usos, reclaiming that gold away from the bloodline and sending the first crack through Roman's empire. Cody Rhodes is just Captain Marvel. And yes, he would have been a phenomenal choice for someone to dethrone Roman. But so would have Sami Zayn in Montreal. So would have Drew McIntyre last year at Clash in the Castle. So would have Kevin Owens at Royal Rumble 2021. They would have all been great choices to dethrone Roman. But much like duct tape's a great way to fix a hole in your ceiling, it's not exactly the right way to do it, is it? But I will say this, for all of you who got pissed off and yelled that you'd never watch WWE again after Cody loses, I empathize with you. I agree. I thought that, hey, that was a little bit of a bad booking decision, especially for it to happen at WrestleMania, but I don't think that that's a bad thing. In the words of Diamond Dallas Page,
it was a good thing.
It's a good thing to have good contenders for Roman's title. It's a good thing to have credible and logical storylines that make sense for the babyface to get the victory at the end of it. That's what makes it all the more impactful when Roman finally, by the skin of his teeth, pulls out that 1, 2, 3. It's the Infinity War moment. WrestleMania 39 was literally Infinity War. It was the moment of, holy shit, what if this guy can't be stopped? What if there is nothing that can overcome the might of the bloodline and overcome the might of Roman Reigns? Hell, the biggest question I saw people asking after WrestleMania 39 was, what's next? And for a company telling a continuous narrative like professional wrestling in the WWE, what's next is the best question for people to be asking. And I know everyone's saying, well, hold on, they've ruined the moment. There's no way they're ever going to get that heat back. They're never going to have the same level of excitement and fire that they had with Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. And I agree somewhat, but that's also the same thing people said during Montreal at Elimination Chamber. They said, well, why didn't they give Sami Zayn this big victory? They're just throwing it off to Cody Rhodes. Sami Zayn was the perfect person to end the reign. And then Cody Rhodes was the perfect person to end the reign. Before both of them, it was Drew McIntyre. Before them, Kevin Owens. Like, there's, throughout this entire storyline, been these credible contenders built up that we thought they couldn't make a better contender than. And every single time they've managed to one-up themselves. Hell, the first segment Cody had after Sami lost immediately sold all of us on the main event of WrestleMania 39. And in my opinion, I don't even think they need a segment to sell the impact of Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. Because in my opinion, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns have a much more interesting character dynamic versus Cody and Roman ever did. I mean, look at how they started in the company, as members of the Shield, a group dedicated to a vision that Rollins has kept throughout his entire career. A vision of revolution, a vision of changing, a vision of the future of the WWE. But eventually that vision became to become just another cheesy top babyface group, something that Roman was a lot more comfortable in. And let's not forget, Roman wasn't even supposed to be in the Shield in the first place. He was shoehorned in there because top WWE brass needed a way to get him onto the main event scene. One is a visionary, an innovator, dedicated to changing the WWE for good, to help build it into something even better than it was before. And on the other side, you have the classic WWE blueprint of what they think a top guy's supposed to be. A hard-hitting, pretty boy who's easy to market and arguably their safest choice to become champion. Kind of not unlike Cody Rhodes when you think about it. On one side, you have change, the future, revolution, and on the other side, you have the status quo and stagnation. Two themes that fit perfectly against one another. And if you want to go back to the MCU comparison, I mean, yeah, you could have had Captain Marvel show up in the second to last movie in the saga, sweep in, take out Thanos' ships, and save the day, but it really wouldn't be that satisfying, would it? Instead, it looks a lot better when you bookend the saga, having it end with the person it began with in the form of Iron Man. And in the case of the Bloodline saga, our own personal Robert Downey Jr. will be played by none other than Seth Freakin Rollins. Because while the Bloodline saga technically began back in 2020, I think the seeds of the saga were planted a long time before that. Specifically at WrestleMania 31, the moment where the tribal chief was finally ready to step up and become head of the table, ready to ascend to that level of being the next top guy in the WWE. When Seth Rollins ran down that ramp, rushed in the ring, and ripped that opportunity away from Roman Reigns, ripped his ascension to the top, embarrassing him, not just in front of the audience, but in front of his family as well, to a point where the entire Anoa'i wrestling family, and most specifically Roman's father Sika, were getting ready to cause a literal war in the crowd because of it. And how did the WWE Universe react to Roman's moment being ripped away from him? They cheered. They were elated. They jumped out of their seat. They were so excited to get someone other than Roman as the WWE Universal Champion, or whatever champion it was at the time. I cannot remember. I'm just saying that Roman had worked so hard. He had pushed his way to the top. He had kept his nose to the grindstone. He did everything a good little babyface should to become the next top guy in the company, and still fell short. And as he continued to work and as he continued to climb, the fans continued to not care. The fans refused to cheer him. The fans refused to look his way. The fans refused to acknowledge him. And through all of it, one individual became the physical embodiment of the WWE Universe's hatred for Roman Reigns. And that man was Seth Rollins. And while Roman continued to try to rise up and claim that spot that was once held by John Cena, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Seth Rollins was waiting to knock him down a peg every single step of the way. Whether that was attempting to reclaim the title at Payback or to defend his title a couple of years later at Money in the Bank 2016, Rollins was always that one person that Roman Reigns was never able to get one up on. At the end of the day, if Roman Reigns is the king of the WWE, Seth Rollins has been his jester, waiting patiently every single step of the way for him to get a bit too arrogant so he can knock him down a few pegs. Hell, even when Roman was surpassing 500 days as Universal Champion, something that was literally unthought of in the modern era, Seth Rollins still came along, got in his head, and forced the tribal chief to lose via DQ for the first time on pay-per-view. There's only been one person Roman's lost to on pay-per-view since beginning the Bloodline saga, and it's Seth Rollins. And even then, even if Seth didn't win the title, he continued to go on and would claim the United States Championship, a title that Roman once saw as a demotion within the WWE. And what does Seth do with the US Championship? He turns it into the veritable World Championship of Monday Night Raw. Roman Reigns was the undisputed top champion in the company, and despite that, Rollins still found a way to put himself on the exact same level, using a title that Roman once discounted as a demotion. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns are the embodiment of that old quote, "I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not." Because for Seth Rollins, he did not care if he was hated or beloved when he walked out to that ring and was unabashedly himself, whether he was wearing stupid outfits, cackling in an over-the-top voice, doing whatever he loved. He didn't care if he was loved or hated. And that led to the WWE Universe falling in love with him over and over again. And as for Roman Reigns, for the longest time, he was trying to be something he wasn't. He was telling bad jokes, putting on airs, and pretending to be the next John Cena. And it failed him every single step of the way. Seth Rollins could go out there, stab a guy in the eyeball, kick his granny into the audience, and the audience would still sing his song. And for Roman Reigns, you could show a whole video package of him being nice to Make-A-Wish kids, and they'd still find a way to boo him afterwards. Hell, the only time Seth Rollins got booed relentlessly by the WWE Universe was right after he won the championship, when he started towing the company line and acting like what he thought the top guy in the company needed to be. Basically, when he started acting like Roman Reigns. And for Seth, that's going to be the most interesting question he has to answer when, not if, when he feuds with Roman next. Because whether he wins or loses, I do think they need to have one more feud. This time a lot more serious with a lot more stakes behind it. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, there's too much story there left on the table for them not to revisit in some capacity. But the question that Seth Rollins has to answer during that feud is quite simply, who is he? Who does the Jester become when he finally goes at the king and steals the crown? Who does the Jester become when he's forced to be a top guy? Because the last time Rollins tried to do that, he nearly imploded and lost the love of almost the entire fan base. While Roman Reigns spends that feud worried about protecting his title reign, keeping the bloodline together, and kicking Rollins out of his rent-free head, Rollins instead gets to worry about the question, who is Seth Rollins without Roman Reigns? Who is Seth Rollins without that chip on his shoulder? Who is Seth Rollins when he becomes the WWE Undisputed Universal Champion? Who does the Jester become when the crown goes on his head? And that's where things get really interesting, because much like in their first feud, where Seth finally got Roman to drop the tribal chief persona and instead just come to him as a betrayed man, furious at his friend for what he did to him so many years ago, I think this next feud will finally get Seth to drop the revolutionary, visionary, over-the-top persona and instead just come to us as a man who is frustrated with years of being looked over in favor of Roman Reigns, dozens of chips stacked up on his shoulders. Who is Seth Rollins really? He's a man with years of frustration and anger packed onto his heart. Frustration at seeing Roman get picked after him for so many main event opportunities, for so many WrestleManias. Roman's always been that guy, and that has ate away at Rollins' heart every single step of the way. At the end of the day, the WWE is a company that gave Rollins everything. His wife, his kid, everything came because of the WWE, and that's a debt that he wants to repay by carrying their banner, by carrying their belts, and proving that he is the best in the world. And yet instead, he's been forced to watch others get handed those opportunities that he got bent over backwards for. And that is what's going to lead to one of the most insane WrestleMania main events when he gets that opportunity against Roman Reigns. At the end of the day, Roman Reigns didn't get shook by Cody Rhodes. Roman Reigns didn't get shook by Sami Zayn. Didn't get shook by Drew McIntyre, by Kevin Owens, by veritably any opponent he's ever faced, except for Seth Rollins. Because Seth Rollins can have Roman Reigns shook by just stepping in the building. Not because of who he is, not because of what he's done, but because of what he represents. Because Seth Rollins represents change. He represents a turning of the page. He represents a WWE where a guy like Roman Reigns doesn't just get handed all of the main event opportunities he's been handed. And that thought terrifies Roman. Because when Seth Rollins becomes the WWE Undisputed Universal Champion, much like Stone Cold Steve Austin defeating Shawn Michaels, much like John Cena beating JBL, Daniel Bryan defeating Triple H, it's going to be a changing of the guard. It's going to be a new day in the WWE, and it's going to be something that we sorely need. And it's going to be brought to us by a visionary, by a revolutionary, by Seth Freakin Rollins, the next WWE Undisputed Universal Champion. I just took a look into the future when fucking Cody or whoever actually beats Roman for the titles, and 1,000 people in the comments going, told you so, told you so, told you so. So hey, if you're here for that, just make sure to subscribe as well, leave a like on the video, that's fine. This is just my own personal thought. I genuinely love Seth Rollins. I think the dichotomy he has with Roman is really fun. I mean, logically, it would also make sense for Roman to finally defeat Seth at some point, you know, to overcome all of his doubts and all of the insecurities that came from that betrayal so long ago. But also, fuck Roman. I want to see a new champion, and I think Seth Rollins is the best person to do it. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know who you think the next champion should be. Whether that is Cody Rhodes, whether that is Seth Rollins, whether that's Xavier fucking Woods, because let's be honest, it really needs to be Xavier Woods. But until next time, remember to like, remember to comment, and remember to subscribe, because when you're a fight boy, ladies and gentlemen, you're a fight boy for life!